Hello and welcome to the history of Babylon 5. Today's episode we're going to cover Anna Sheridan, Mr. Morden, and Zhadum. Dr. Anna Sheridan was the second wife of John Sheridan and later unwilling agent of the Shadows. A respected xenoarchaeologist, she held at least one PhD. Anna Keller was introduced to John Sheridan through his sister, Elizabeth Sheridan, one of her best friends. They were married on December 3rd, 2249. In November 2256, Anna was asked by Dr. Chang to join him on an expedition on board the Icarus, an IPX exploration ship, partly funded by the Earth Force New Technologies. The Icarus's mission was to find and survey a newly discovered planet on the rim, codenamed Alpha Omega 3. Unknown to Anna at the time, IPX sent the Icarus there after specifically tracking a shadow vessel found buried. During the journey to the rim, Anna befriended Dr. Morden, a fellow xenoarchaeologist on loan to IPX from Earth Force's New Technologies. On January 3rd, 2257, after setting down on the planet, the crew came into contact with the newly awakened Shadows. The Shadows offered the crew members a choice, serving them willingly or unwillingly. Anna was among those who refused, but rather than having her killed, the Shadows placed her inside one of their ships, as they used living beings as their central processing units. Anna was the controller of one of the shadow vessels involved in the Battle of Quadrant 37. Before coming out of hyperspace, she had received her orders from the Eye to first destroy the ships in orbit and then subsequently destroy the outpost below. She, along with the other shadow vessels, made sure that all structures had been completely obliterated. Once the Shadows learned who she was and her connection to Captain Sheridan in 2260, they removed her from the vessel. But she had been inside the ship for too long, and her personality had been completely destroyed. This led to a new personality being created and planted inside Anna, one that was utterly dedicated to the Shadows and their mission. At the end of 2260, Anna was sent to Babylon 5 to bring John Sheridan to Zhadum, following the Shadows' defeat at the Battle of Sector 83. Unaware that the crew of B5 knew how the shadow vessels operated, she agreed to be inspected by Dr. Stephen Franklin. Franklin quickly determined what had happened to her, and John could sense that the woman that he had married was truly gone. Nevertheless, he went along with her to Zhadum. Leading him inside the Shadows' capital city, she introduced him to Justin along with Morden. The three explained the war from the Shadows' perspective. After calling them out on what they did to Anna, John attempted to flee, but Anna and several Shadows pursued him to the balcony outside the capital city overlooking the edge of the Great Abyss, appealing to John to come back with her. Instead, he leapt into the chasm. Anna died when the White Star came crashing down into the city, detonating two 500 megaton thermonuclear devices, shrieking out the war cry of the shadow ship as her death approached. Background information. Anna Sheridan first appeared on a message recorded to Elizabeth Sheridan prior to her death in Revelations, played by Beth Torreson. When the time came for Anna to appear again, Beth Torreson wasn't available, and actress Melissa Gilbert, Bruce Boxleitner's real-life spouse, was cast in her place. Gilbert's first appearance as Anna was in World Without End Part 2, though only her shadow and voice were featured in that episode, before being fully revealed at the end of Shadow Dancing and throughout the episode Zhadum. In addition to these appearances, Melissa Gilbert also reshot Anna's message to Elizabeth Sheridan from Revelations, which was cut together with the original footage of Bruce Boxleitner for a brief flashback scene in Zhadum. In the DVD commentary for that episode, J. Michael Straczynski slyly refers to the scene as a piece of Soviet revisionism and mentions the possibility of inserting the reshot footage into Revelations. A photo of Melissa Gilbert also appears in the episode in the beginning, and her image was also used to portray Anna on both of the two different covers of Janie Cavello's novel, The Shadow Within. The wedding photo seen in Zhadum was from Bruce and Melissa's actual wedding. Right after this, Mr. Morden. Mr. Morden was a human agent of the Shadows and former member of the ill-fated Icarus mission. Originally from Earth, Morden was born on Monday, May 25th, 2223, in Summit, New Jersey. While studying for his PhD in archaeology at Michigan State University, Morden took his first job as a teenager at the university bookstore. After he graduated with a specialty in archaeolinguistics, Morden found employment and worked for the Earth Force's New Technology Division. During this time, he visited several worlds and dig sites, including Anne Frank. In June 2248, Morden married his wife, and almost 2 years later, in May 2250, she gave birth to their daughter, Sarah Morden. In February of that year, Morden gave a speech before the Interplanetary Archaeological Society on the misconceptions surrounding the Anne Frank lovestones, one of his earliest recorded speeches as an archaeolinguistic. In May 2256, tragedy struck when Morden's wife and daughter were killed when the ship they were traveling on was caught in the terrorist bombing of the Io Jumpgate that claimed over 500 other passengers. Images of the distressed and grief-stricken Morden being harassed by insensitive reporters were broadcast on ISN. Morden later moved to Station Prime. Morden was still working for Earth Force New Technologies when he was assigned on loan to IPX for Dr. Chang's archaeological team on board the Icarus in December 2256. The Icarus was an interplanetary expeditions exploratory ship that set down on Zhadum in 2257, in which the crew came into contact with the newly awakened shadows. During the flight, Morden was befriended by Dr. Anna Sheridan, who during the ship's New Year's party gave him an Afran lovestone, an artifact from one of his previous expeditions, which she had taken from his quarters the day before and put it on a necklace. Shocked that he failed to notice that it was missing from his quarters, Morden put it around his neck and decided to keep it with him, always. Secretly working for the Shadows, Morden returned to civilization in 2258 to Babylon 5, with the purpose of asking each of the ambassadors of Babylon 5's advisory council a single question. What do you want? They used that question to see whether or not the ambassadors and their races fit their needs. Although at first Ambassador Jakar showed promise, he had no ambition beyond revenge. However, he discovered that Londo Mollari was the perfect candidate for their needs, and seized the opportunity to put Londo in his debt, and on the path his associates needed him to be. With his help, Morden convinced Londo to allow the Shadows to lend their support through the fight against the Narn, and allowed them to sweep through the victory without the Centauri losing a single fighter. When it was discovered who Morden was and where he came from, Captain John Sheridan tried to find out detailed information on why he's the lone survivor of the Icarus. Delenn and Kosh explained to Sheridan the truth about what had happened, and that the Icarus was not actually destroyed, but that when they arrived on Zhadum, they had awakened the Shadows who had forced the humans to either serve them or be killed. Evidence was later discovered that Morden had a hand in helping President Morgan Clark to assassinate President Luis Santiago. In 2260, Morden boarded B5 to confront Londo Mollari about his directive to Lord Rifa to stop dealing with him. Since the station was watching out for him, he boarded via a deal with one of the newly hired low-level security on the station. Later, he killed the man to cover his tracks. When he met with Mollari, however, he was denied again. One of the Shadows with him wanted to kill him, but Morden had a plan. He followed Vircato and was able to find out he was making arrangements for Adira to visit Mollari. Morden paid another human to kill her with a poison while she was still on board the transport. As Morden predicted, when Mollari found out how she died, he presumed it was Rifa who had done it. This enraged Mollari and prompted him to continue work with Morden. During this trip, Morden also learned that the Vorlons were openly engaging Shadow forces. Morden then led 3 Shadows to Kosh, and they killed him. Morden was present on Zhadum when Sheridan destroyed the Shadows' main capital city. Sheridan was nearly killed, but Lorien rescued him. Morden suffered a great amount of damage to his skin, but quickly recovered. In early 2261, Morden was assigned to Centauri Prime to serve as intermediary for the Shadows and Emperor Cartasia, as the small island of Selene was being used as a base of operations for the Shadows. Soon after Cartagia was killed, Londo ordered Morden killed to save Centauri Prime from being destroyed by the Vorlons, and as an act of revenge for the murder of Adira. Morden's head was placed on a pike, which Vir Cato gratefully acknowledged with a small wave of his hand. In 2262, Morden returned during the Day of the Dead ceremony to tell Lennier that he would soon betray the Rangers and die shortly thereafter. And we'll be right back with Zhadum. Zhadum is a home planet of the Shadows, and for countless millennia, the home of Lorien. Zhadum's official Earth Alliance designation is Alpha Omega 3, meaning that it is the third planet from its star. The planet is located on the rim of known space. It is approximately a 4-day jump from the Epsilon system. Zhadum is covered in extensive mountain ranges. The temperature averages 50 degrees Fahrenheit and the gravity is approximately 1.3 Gs. The mountains are made from igneous rock and the plains of sedimentary rock. Violent dust storms cloak roughly 25% of the planetary surface at any one time. The planet has an extremely dry atmosphere with low levels of carbon monoxide, which would prove fatal to humans within about an hour. There is also a background level of radiation, suggesting the planet was nuked approximately 1,000 years ago. Stone pillars ranging from 100 to 150 yards in height cover most of the planetary surface. They are spaced exactly 2.43 miles apart from one another. The pillars are covered in characters from the Shadow language. By the 23rd century, Zhadum was a blasted, charred wasteland. Its surface marred with many attacks that drove the Shadows away from the planet, eon after eon. When they returned at the dawning of the Third Age, their cities were kept mostly underground. It is unknown if Zhadum was the homeworld of the Shadows as a species, but for the most part, their long history, they considered it their home. This was due to the presence of Lorien, one of the first ones, who lived deep in the chasm on the planet for over 1 million years. The last time the Shadows would be driven from the planet would be the end of the First Shadow War in 1261 AD. Some of their race managed to remain, but were in a state of hibernation. Nearly 1,000 years later, the Shadows returned. They slowly rebuilt their great cities. They also began to recall some of their ships that they had hidden throughout the galaxy after the war. One of their ships had been hidden on Mars. When Earth Force crews uncovered it, they reactivated an ancient beacon. Days later, the Shadow Allies sent a second ship to retrieve the first one. The Psi Corps, however, had managed to plant a homing beacon inside. In 2257, Interplanetary Expeditions was commissioned to send a ship, the Icarus, to Zhadum on an exploratory mission. Most of the crew was apparently unaware that they were being used, that the planet was where the Shadow vessel had been tracked to. The Icarus's long-range probe awoke the Shadows hibernating there. When the Icarus arrived on Zhadum, they found it seemingly deserted. They were captured by the Shadows, and those members of the crew who would not serve willingly were said to have been killed. However, Morden and Anna Sheridan were enslaved by the Shadows. It is possible that the other crew members were simply integrated into various Shadow vessels to fight in the upcoming war. Once the Shadows had been defeated and left for Beyond the Rim, the White Star was sent to investigate Zhadum, only to see a mysterious fleet, almost certainly the Drakh, leaving Zhadum moments before the entire planet exploded. Background information. According to JMS, the name Zhadum is of Minbari origin and roughly translates as Death of the Future, whilst the novel, The Shadow Within, considered mostly canon, details the story of the Icarus and its voyage to Zhadum, and reveals that the Earth codename for the mysterious planet is Alpha Omega 3. Alpha and Omega, when used together, can often refer to as the beginning and the end, or the beginning of the end, as they are the first and last letters in the Greek alphabet, respectively. So it appears that both the Minbari and the humans named for this world roughly mean the same thing. Thank you for watching the history of Babylon 5. Special thanks to the Babylon Project for all information you heard today. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe if you can. If you have, thank you. And lots of you have, and thank you, thank you. And have a great day. Bye-bye.